You're listening to the Back Porch Talk podcast. Danny and Jason had many discussions and debates on the back porch while making pivotal investment moves with assets. That's right, with trading cards. They welcome you to the back porch and right into those discussions about current sports news with a fresh and unique twist. So come on and join us. Welcome to the Back Porch Talk podcast. I'm your co-host, Jason.
It's your co-host, Danny.
Fans, we got a full show for you today, so let's get to it. NBA talk, playoff talk, a little bit about the NFL, and we have an interesting trading card scenario for you. But first, Danny, to the NBA, where, oh boy, the Brooklyn Nets got swept. Yes, Danny, what does this do to KD's legacy? What does it do to the offseason for the Brooklyn Nets? And ultimately, what's going to happen to the front office? What's going to happen to the team, man? Just so many questions. Ben Simmons did not play. For whatever reason, it could have been his back, could have been the mental related matters. But nonetheless, Danny, it just seems like we're back at it again with Ben Simmons. He has a full another offseason to deal with this and ultimately to play with the Brooklyn Nets in training camp during preseason. They got some time to get right. But, man, the fact that they got swept by the Boston Celtics, and kudos to the Boston Celtics, man, for playing hellified defense against KD. Come out before he even gets the ball. But, man, what does this really do to KD's legacy? What say you, Danny?
Yeah, congratulations to the Celtics. They're going to be a tough out in these playoffs.
Yes.
They did. Robert Williams did come back in this series, which was huge for them. That gives them more front court depth and an athletic big to protect the rim and play some defense and can score. They will definitely be a tough out. And on the Brooklyn side of things, they were in every game, and I did not see them getting swept, but they just couldn't execute down the stretch in any of those games. They lost all those games in that fourth quarter where if they were down, they came back, or if they were up, they lost the lead. We thought they had enough depth when they made the trade with the Sixers, when they got rid of Harden. And Seth Curry had a decent series. Drummond didn't get to play a lot. They actually went to Blake Griffin in those final two games, which gave them a spark. But they have a ton of decisions this offseason, and they have a lot of money tied up in a couple players. Yeah, I don't know with Ben Simmons, man. You wonder if his back was an issue, why even be on the court? If you're sitting at an NBA game for how long? 2.5 hours, 3 hours, and you have back issues, man, just go in the back and watch the game, get treatment.
Come on,
or
man.
Something, I don't know the extent of how the depth of this injury, but if it's a back issue and you're sitting in one of those folding chairs for a whole game, man, that's got to bother you. So I don't know, man. And I don't know if it was just a mental thing with him, just getting over that to get on the court, and maybe he didn't want to get put in that pressure situation coming in a game 3 or a closeout game, and which ended up being game 4.
But Danny, to that point though, why even say then that you're coming back in game 4? And if anything else, wouldn't you want to come back in game 3?
That's the whole thing, because there's less pressure in game 3. And you can get those 10 minutes in, ease them in, and you kind of see what you have. Because if he's not there, then they're like, all right, we'll sit you game 4. This is not going to work. We'll just go what we have, but at least more or less do a test run to see where you at from a condition standpoint, and if you're going to be a hindrance or a help on the court. But we didn't get to see it.
We sure didn't. Sure didn't.
Now the Nets have a lot of decisions to make this offseason, from, like you mentioned, What are they going to do with the coach? Are they going to keep Nash and let Nash go? A lot of people got to be under the hot seat based on what the expectations were with this team 2 years ago to where they are now.
Yeah, most definitely. This is just odd times. I think they have just a lot more questions than answers. And what doesn't help with are comments that Kyrie made after the series and everything about possibly helping management with the team. I'm like, man, at this point in time, you need to just kind of look at what you can do to make the team better and leave all the management work to executives and such. So they have a lot more questions than answers at this point in time, in my opinion, Danny.
And KD is not getting any younger.
KD just looks spent, man. KD played 47 minutes. He's been playing a whole lot of minutes, man. Went 13 for 31 from the field, 3 for 11 from 3-point. Had 39 on him. He, went out, gunning, but this wasn't enough. 116, 112 to end the series in Boston's favor. Andre Drummond, to your earlier point, played 4 minutes. They actually played Claxton a whole lot more, played him 23 minutes. And they went small ball where they had, Patty Mills, Dragic on there, and they were actually, doing pretty well, getting rebounds and everything. And like to your point, Blake Griffin did play, but they just have a whole lot more questions, man, with this roster and all. So who knows what's going to happen in the offseason. But it's an offseason nonetheless for them. So they will, either going to Cancun, going fishing, whatever.
They're right in the same boat. They're in the same boat as the Lakers. The Lakers are in the same exact boat. You have key stars on the team making a lot of money, and you're trying to build around that. What are you going to do?
Well, this brings up an interesting question, though, too, Danny, about the culture of the teams, right? So you have the Boston Celtics who, for the most part, drafted a lot of their players, developed the culture, that Boston culture, and look at where they are right now. Minus Kyrie now. Maybe Kyrie just didn't fit into the Boston drafted players' culture. So that's just interesting. You also look at, even from a Lakers standpoint, Lakers always has gotten free agents, but there's always also been some individuals that's been drafted in the Lakers. It's homegrown. So I think this speaks to the ultimate culture, what kind of team the Brooklyn Nets really want. A whole lot of questions there. And Danny, there's so much happening in the NBA with these playoffs. You have the Raptors winning 103-88 in Philadelphia, and where now the series is 3-2 going back to Toronto. The Dallas Mavericks are up. They beat the Utah Jazz. They smashed the Utah Jazz 102-77 in Dallas. And so now they go back to Utah for game number 6. Dallas leads that series 3-2. And then you have our Milwaukee Bucks actually playing tonight, man, trying to wrap this series up against the Bulls. As of right now, looks like Levine is out due to safety and health protocol. You have Caruso out due to concussion protocol. And then later on tonight, you have the likes of the Warriors and Nuggets going for it, and where the Warriors lead that series 3-1. Man, there's a whole lot happening, Danny. Whole lot happening, man. And then you had the likes of the Grizzlies. Come on, man. Come on, Ja Morant. Just going ahead and with a last-second layup, winning the game. That came after Edwards tying the game on a three-pointer. Corner 3 at that. Man, that was an awesome game. That series has been great. The Miami Heat closing out the Atlanta Hawks 97-94 on last evening. And then finally, the Phoenix Suns of a 112-97 victory over the New Orleans Pelicans, where now the Phoenix Suns lead that series 3-2. Is going back to New Orleans. So there's a whole lot happening, man. I'm anxious about this Memphis Grizzlies Timberwolves game, man. That's coming up, but man, these Milwaukee Bucks got to go ahead and close it out because that Bucks Celtics series, I believe, is going to go 7 games.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Middleton is going to come back in the middle of that series. But man, I tell you, the Bucks are going to have to win a game or two here to keep it close for this series. What say you, Danny?
Jason, a couple items here. First, I'm gonna start with my T-Wolves tricking that game off last night. So once again, Minnesota had a big lead and it evaporated in the fourth quarter, where they were up 13 in the fourth quarter last night. Big play in the game, a couple big plays. One was Pat Bev fouled out. But then towards the end of the game, there was a play where Pat Bev, they stole the ball and it was going out of bounds, and Ja Morant pushed him out. You saw it, right? It was right in front of the referee. They didn't call it. And then Memphis went ahead and hit a 3-pointer, which pulled them within a couple points. But that breakdown on defense and that last play with Ja Morant, knowing he's getting the ball, Minnesota, what are you doing?
What you doing, man?
There was no help.
None.
Zero. There was no one at least camping in the lane to at least you knew Ja Morant was, I don't know what Anthony Edwards was thinking to try to steal the ball like he did to open that up where Ja Morant got a straight, drive to the basket for the game-winning layup. But there was no help. I didn't understand that defensive game plan. And Minnesota, if they lose this series, they've got to be kicking themselves.
They've had opportunities to win this series, man.
And they you know what who they remind me of? My Atlanta Falcons. Can't close the dang game. You have big leads and you just blow it. And I'm like, it's so frustrating watching them because they have the talent to go to the second round and beat Memphis, but we'll see what they do in Minnesota in Game 6. But that series has been off the hook.
It has, man. It really has.
I've been glued to that series the whole time because it's up and down and had some great ebbs and flows.
And Edwards has proven that he is a star in the making. And Dahl, man, he had 22 points for this particular game, but man, again, he did have that game tying 3-pointer in the corner.
Yep.
At 109. And then Ja Morant did his thing, man. So it's going to be interesting to see, what they do in Minnesota, Danny. Yep.
And then a couple of these other ones real quick. Miami took care of business against the Hawks. Down Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry. So something to watch from a Miami perspective, if those injuries will persist into the second round or if they're able to play through that.
Miami Heat, Victor Oladipo coming off injury and making big contributions here. I mean, he had 23 last night. So that's another piece for them to really utilize, whether he's coming off the bench or what have you. So Miami's going to be a tough out as well. This is going to be interesting the rest of the way in the semis and the conference finals.
Totally agree. And Golden State better wrap this series tonight at home. I thought they were going to do it Sunday because with their veterans, you want them to get some rest. And you can't mess around with Denver because Denver's had them in a lot of these games, and then they went on these crazy runs. Golden State needs to go ahead and wrap this so they can get some rest ahead of that Memphis, Minnesota winner. Because that's going to be an up and down series again. Last but not least, in the other series, I know you hit on, but the Sixers. And a report today that Doc Rivers was snapping about the Sixers blowing leads. They better not lose
Hey
they
man,
better not lose to Toronto.
hey, it's a sign of things to come. I actually predicted Toronto to win this series.
Yes, you did.
It's unfortunate that Van Vliet is hurt and everything to provide a little bit more help. At the point guard position. But man, the reason why I picked the Toronto Raptors to win is because just their flexibility and height and how agile they are. You can switch off on anything. They can really get up on you in terms of defense. And so I just didn't think that James Harden will really have a great series, quite honestly, because of the length that Toronto has, and been proven right so far. Embiid's hurt with the injury there to the hand. So we'll see how this goes. But boy, for Doc Rivers to be snapping, that means it's been in his head.
There's some pressure.
It's some pressure right now.
Yep.
It's some pressure. So I think, honestly, man, I think Toronto gonna win this game in Toronto.
Man, for Doc's sake, man, I'm pulling for Doc, man. I won't see him go through this.
Hey, man,
that brother gonna be sweating.
Hey,
so we don't want to see Doc go through this.
We gonna see Doc do some hellified coaching or try to coach.
Yep.
In this game, you gonna see him doing a whole lot more. I can see him probably getting a text some way, somehow, just to elevate the whole team. But man, I believe Toronto's going to win this game, man.
See you tomorrow night.
And now, Danny, on to the NFL, where the NFL is having their draft in Las Vegas that will begin on Thursday evening with just the first round. And let me just say this, Danny, about the Green Bay Packers real quickly.
Yep.
Green Bay, you have 2 first-round picks. Now, there's rumors there about Gutekunst actually trading these picks. There's rumors that they're going to wait to get a receiver on the second day. What are we talking about? So you have not 1 but 2 picks in the first round, and you're not going to get a receiver in the first round? I don't understand, man. I really don't understand. We have gone defense for so long, whether it's been in the secondary, whether it's been, at the linebacker position. I mean, we've done defense so many. It's time to do something different. You can still do defense, but you know what? You got another pick to get some offense.
Yep.
You can get a true number 1 receiver in this draft and pay that receiver on a rookie scale contract for 3 to 4 years. What's the problem with that? I don't get it. And so we'll see what happens in the draft, Danny. We'll see what happens. But I tell you, Packers under some pressure, man. Gutekunst, we'll see what you're going to do, but I'm just not confident at all in the draft strategies. What say you, Danny?
Jason, from a Falcons standpoint, we have pick number 8. And we have 2 second-round picks, 2 third-round picks. Obviously, we need a quarterback. We need a lot on the defensive side of the ball. And it wouldn't hurt to have offensive line help too, because, when Matt Ryan was there, he was running for his life every game. So they have a lot of holes. And from my perspective, with this pick, do not go. The quarterback class is not strong. And you have someone in Mariota that can bridge that gap until next year, where there's the quarterback class is way stronger. And if you're going to be playing, we're going to be possibly, at the bottom of the division or conference, why not just either trade back and amass more picks for like the second and third round? And because they have a lot of cap issues as well. So just amass more picks and do it that way, unless there's someone that just stands out at that 8 pick. But I hope they don't use it on quarterback in this draft, because I just don't see the talent there from someone that's, it wasn't like a Trevor Lawrence or a Trey Lance or Justin Fields type name that could definitely, you can get them ready, and then in a couple of years they'll be ready to roll. But I'm very curious what they do. But I'm hoping they trade back or they get one of these. They need defensive line help more than anything. They'll have some decisions to make, but I will not be mad at them if they trade back and amass more picks and just start rebuilding this thing.
Danny, and this to go a little bit further on the Packers have the 22nd and 28th pick in the first round. That 22nd pick is actually a pick from the trade that they acquired from the Las Vegas Raiders when they traded for Devontae Adams.
Yep.
Here's my point, man. You got a first round pick for a receiver, right? Why don't you just go ahead and use it for another receiver
at a discount?
Come on, man. So the Packers also have the 53rd and 59th pick. That 53rd pick is also acquired from the trade with Devontae Adams from the Las Vegas Raiders. So just some significant opportunities here. If you ask me the question, would I be satisfied if the Packers were to make a trade? If they were to draft a wide receiver in the second round, would I be satisfied? No. An emphatic no, I would not be satisfied. Because I'm tired of this, this waiting for a receiver. I mean, granted, yeah, you can get receivers in any round.
Yep.
We've gotten some good quality receivers over the past in any round, but man, isn't it time just for a first round receiver? I mean, try something different. Why not? So we'll see what happens. And now, Danny, we have an interesting trading card scenario. Who we got?
With our boy Deebo Samuel in the news of possibly being traded or requesting a trade or whatever the rumor is, it keeps going back and forth with him. Our trading card scenario tonight is Deebo Samuel's 2019 Panini Prizm rookie card for Anquan Boldin's 2003 Upper Deck rookie card. Couple quick bios. Deebo Samuel was the 36th pick in the 2019 draft out of South Carolina by the 49ers. One-time Pro Bowl, one-time All-Pro. Currently at 167 receptions, 2,600 receiving yards, 10 touchdowns receiving. Anquan Boldin was the 54th pick out of Florida State in the 2003 draft by the Arizona Cardinals. He was a three-time Pro Bowler, Rookie of the Year, won Super Bowl, has 1,076 receptions, 13,779 yards receiving over his career, 82 touchdowns. Jason, who do you want in your portfolio?
Danny, I'm still going back and forth on this, man. This has been one of those where I have just been racking my brain around, man. Let me just say that Anquan Boldin started off as a 1,000+ yard receiver, but look at where he went to. He went to Arizona. And where Arizona had more of a high potent offense, if you will. And it speaks volumes to his career in Arizona. 1,377 yards to start off with. He dropped down to 623. Must have been an injury there.
Yep.
But then went back up to 1,402 yards. 1,203, 853, 1038. 1024. That's his time in Arizona, man. I mean, he was a quality receiver. And then he went to a little bit more of a pedestrian offensive team in that of Baltimore. 837, 887, 921 yards. So less than 1,000 yards all throughout his time in Baltimore. And then, of course, with San Francisco, 1,179 yards, 1,062 yards. Here's my point, Danny. He's been consistent, and he is recognized as a Walter Payton Award winner. That's a whole lot, man. Not only that, he was offensive rookie of the year, like you mentioned, and 3-time Pro Bowler. This is a hard one, Danny, because as I look at Deebo Samuel, I'm like, man, he has potential to be in that league, in that category. Yeah. Now, he started off, Deebo, that is, with 802 yards in receiving, and then dropped down to 391 yards in receiving. But the thing is, his rushing yards, especially this past year, was at 365 and receiving at 1405. So dual threat, if you will. So Danny, this was a tough one. And I see why Deebo wants to get his money, but he's still in the contract, man. In my portfolio, I'm going to go with Anquan Boldin. I have to go with Anquan Boldin, Danny. Because he came in and he was 1,000+ yard receiver. And who can argue with over 13,000 yards receiving? And who can argue that you're a Super Bowl champion? You're a Walter Payton Award winner. You're offensive rookie of the year, 3-time Pro Bowler. I mean, the list kind of goes on. And oh, by the way, I can see him being up for Hall of Fame worthy conversations. So I'm gonna have to go for Anquan Boldin with this in my portfolio. Who you got, Danny?
Jason, yeah, I agree. This one was a tough one to choose. Looking at it from a Deebo Samuel standpoint, like you mentioned, dual threat. Deebo's kind of coming to his own now. So when he initially came out and played with San Fran, he was kind of figuring out his role. And he's a tough player. And he's had some injuries already that's kept him off the field. And I think that's part of it. Kind of reminds me of George Kittle in a way, where they don't quit on the play, and that's where usually something bad happens. You instead of going down, you trying to get, and they're fighting for yards, and they're taking some nasty hits. And I think too, depending on how this all plays out with what's currently going on with him, where he's saying he doesn't want to do the running back role, could definitely impact his trajectory, because that dual threat, man, those jet sweeps, and he's a weapon.
Yeah.
And he's a good receiver. I'm not saying he's bad. He's definitely a good receiver, but that dual threat makes him who he is and how he trucks over people. There's a reason they call him Deebo for all my Friday fans. From Anquan Boldin's perspective, another tough dude, man. And that was one of the reasons we picked this scenario, is because if you remember, Anquan Boldin played with a broken jaw back in the day. And he was another one that was trucking cats. Yeah. And you did not want to tackle him. He had the benefit from an offensive standpoint to play with Kurt Warner and Carson Palmer. And he ended up getting a Super Bowl, and he was a part of some great systems. So that's one thing. I look at Deebo, they run the ball a lot more in San Fran versus when Anquan was in Arizona. They're throwing the ball all the time. So obviously his numbers reflect that. But overall, man, if I'm looking at this from a receiver only standpoint, I'm taking Anquan Boldin's card. I think he has a lot more at this point in time. If you look at his career and his off the field, what he does off the field from a social justice perspective and all these other initiatives he's a part of, he has a lot going on there. And from a Deebo Samuel standpoint, seeing how these next couple of years go down, this is something we may have to revisit to see where he ends up. But I know Deebo has had issues staying on the field. So with that, I'm going to go with Anquan Boldin's card.
There you have it. Thank you for joining us at Back Porch Talk Podcast. You can also join us on Twitter by tweeting us at @back_podcast. For more information, you can go to our website, which is backporchtalkpodcast.com. You can also email us at backporchtalkpodcast@gmail.com. Again, thank you for joining us, and remember that there's enough hate in the world, so go ahead and spread a little love.